You know what really gets under my skin? When someone walks into a place they've never been, looks around at everyone who built that empire brick by brick, and has the audacity to declare war before they've even unpacked their bags. That's exactly what we're witnessing right now with Femi, and honestly, I'm sitting here wondering if this man has lost his absolute mind or if he's the most fearless competitor we've seen step into Monday Night Raw in the last decade. Welcome back to WWE Frenzy, where we break down the chaos, the controversy, and the carnage that keeps us all coming back for more. Today we're diving deep into something that has the entire WWE universe buzzing, something that could reshape the landscape of Raw as we know it, and I'm telling you right now, you're going to want to stick around because what's unfolding is bigger than just one man's ambition. Femi just got called up to Raw, and instead of taking a moment to soak in the atmosphere, instead of paying his dues like every single superstar before him had to do, this man looked directly at the vision and essentially signed his own death warrant. I'm not being dramatic here, I'm being real with you. When you step onto the main roster and immediately target one of the most dominant factions in recent WWE history, you're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish, and I haven't figured out which category Femi falls into yet. But here's what I do know, this situation is volatile, it's unpredictable, and it's exactly the kind of powder keg that creates legendary moments or career-ending disasters. Let me take you back for a second because context matters here. I remember when I first started watching NXT religiously, there was this energy, this hunger that certain superstars had that you just couldn't teach. You could see it in their eyes, you could feel it in their presence, and Femi had that from day one. This wasn't some developmental talent who was just happy to be there, learning the ropes and hoping for a chance. No, this was a man who carried himself like he was destined for something greater, like the championship was just a formality he needed to check off before ascending to where he truly belonged. I watched him dominate the NXT North American Championship scene with a ferocity that reminded me of monsters from wrestling's past, guys who didn't just win matches but left a trail of broken bodies in their wake. But here's where things get interesting, and this is where my blood starts pumping a little faster. The Vision, comprised of some of the most calculated, strategic, and ruthless individuals on the Raw roster, has been running things with an iron fist. They've dismantled everyone who stood in their path, they've collected gold, they've controlled narratives, and they've done it all with this smug confidence that comes from knowing nobody can touch them. Until now. Until this giant from NXT decided that he wasn't going to wait his turn, wasn't going to ease into the main roster waters, wasn't going to show the proper respect that the Vision believes they deserve. Femi essentially walked into their house and spit on their floor, and if you know anything about wrestling, about respect, about the unwritten rules that govern this industry, you know that kind of disrespect doesn't go unanswered. What fascinates me most about this entire situation is the timing. Think about it for a second. Femi could have arrived on Raw, cut a generic promo about being excited for the opportunity, maybe challenged a mid-card talent to establish himself, worked his way up the ranks the traditional way. But that's not what he did. Instead, he chose violence. He chose chaos. He chose to make the biggest statement possible by putting the Vision directly in his crosshairs, and I've got to respect the sheer audacity even if I question the wisdom. This is a man who understands that in today's wrestling landscape, you don't get noticed by playing it safe. You get noticed by taking risks, by creating moments that people can't stop talking about, by forcing your way into conversations whether people like it or not. I've been doing this long enough to recognize patterns, and here's what I'm seeing. The Vision has been so dominant for so long that they've become comfortable. Not complacent necessarily, but comfortable in their role as the apex predators of Monday Night Raw. They've handled every challenge thrown at them with relative ease, they've turned back every would-be usurper, and they've done it all while making it look effortless. But comfort breeds vulnerability. When you're at the top of the mountain for too long, you stop looking over your shoulder as often. You stop expecting threats from unexpected directions. And that's exactly when someone like Femi strikes. He's the variable they didn't account for, the storm they didn't see coming, and now they're forced to deal with a problem they never anticipated having. Let me share something personal with you because I think it relates to what we're witnessing here. Years ago, I was in a situation where I thought I had everything figured out. I had my routine, my comfort zone, my sense of how things were supposed to go. Then someone completely new came into my world and disrupted everything. They didn't follow the patterns I expected, they didn't play by the rules I thought governed our interactions, and initially, I was frustrated. I was angry that they wouldn't just fall in line like everyone else. But you know what I learned? Sometimes disruption is exactly what's needed. Sometimes the most growth comes from having your world shaken up by someone who refuses to conform to your expectations. I wonder if the Vision is about to learn that same lesson the hard way. The narrative that Femi is crafting here is compelling because it taps into something primal that wrestling fans respond to. We love the underdog story, but we also love the conqueror narrative. We love watching someone walk into a new environment with unshakable confidence and back it up with actions. Femi isn't claiming to be the underdog here. He's not asking for sympathy or positioning himself as someone who needs to overcome the odds. He's positioning himself as the inevitable, as the force of nature that was always going to arrive and reshape the landscape, and the Vision just happens to be in the way of his destiny. That's a different kind of energy, a different kind of story, and it's one that could absolutely captivate audiences if it's executed correctly. But let's be real for a moment and talk about the dangers here, because they're significant. The Vision didn't get to where they are by being pushovers. They didn't accumulate power and championships and dominance by being vulnerable to new threats. These are seasoned veterans who have seen every trick, countered every strategy, and overcome every obstacle. When Femi vows to take them down, he's not just challenging individuals, he's challenging a system, a collective intelligence, a group that operates with precision and ruthlessness. The history of wrestling is littered with the careers of talented individuals who overestimated their abilities and underestimated their opponents. The question isn't whether Femi has the physical tools to compete at this level, because clearly he does. The question is whether he has the strategic acumen, the mental fortitude, and the support system necessary to wage war against a faction that has every advantage. What makes this situation even more intense is the psychological warfare that's already beginning. The Vision doesn't just beat opponents physically, they break them mentally. They isolate, they manipulate, they create doubt and division. Femi is walking into this war seemingly alone, which either means he's incredibly confident in his individual abilities or he's got allies we don't know about yet. I've been wondering about that possibility constantly. Is this really a solo mission, or is Femi the tip of the spear for something larger? Could there be other NXT call UPS waiting in the wings, ready to reveal themselves at the perfect moment? Or is he truly planning to take on the Vision single-handedly, relying purely on his physical dominance and unwavering self-belief? Both scenarios are fascinating for different reasons, and both come with their own sets of risks and rewards. I want to circle back to something that I think is getting overlooked in all the excitement and speculation. Femi's time in NXT wasn't just impressive from a wins and losses perspective. What stood out to me, what made me a believer in his potential, was his ability to adapt. He faced different styles, different challenges, different opponents with varying skill sets, and he found ways to overcome all of them. He wasn't a one-dimensional powerhouse who could only win matches one way. He showed versatility, intelligence, ring awareness that you typically don't see from someone so early in their career. That adaptability is going to be crucial moving forward because the Vision will throw everything at him. They'll attack him from angles he doesn't expect, they'll exploit weaknesses he didn't know he had, and they'll force him to evolve in real time or be destroyed. There's also this element of respect, or the lack thereof, that's driving this entire conflict. Professional wrestling has always had this unspoken code about how new arrivals should conduct themselves. You're supposed to show respect to those who came before you, acknowledge the hierarchy, earn your spot through hard work and humility. Femi is flipping that entire concept on its head. He's saying that respect is earned through dominance, not through longevity. He's arguing that his accomplishments in NXT give him the right to challenge anyone on any brand regardless of tenure or status. From a traditional perspective, that's disrespectful and arrogant. But from a modern perspective, from the viewpoint of a generation that believes in meritocracy over seniority, it's refreshing and honest. This generational clash of philosophies adds another layer to an already complex situation. I've got to hand it to WWE Creative here, whether this was entirely their plan or if Femi's personality and confidence shaped the direction. This feels organic in a way that so much of wrestling doesn't anymore. It feels like a legitimate clash of egos and ambitions rather than a manufactured conflict designed to fill television time. The best wrestling stories have always been rooted in something real, something that taps into genuine emotions and authentic motivations. Watching Femi declare war on the Vision feels real because you can sense the hunger, you can feel the conviction, you can believe that this man genuinely sees himself as the catalyst for change on Monday Night Raw. Whether he's right or wrong, whether he succeeds or fails, the authenticity of his belief system makes this compelling television. Let me tell you about another moment from my own life that connects to this, because I think it illustrates an important point. I once watched someone I cared about take on a challenge that everyone told them was impossible. The odds were stacked against them, the experts said they'd fail, and conventional wisdom suggested they should wait, prepare more, choose a different path. But they didn't listen. They believed in themselves with such intensity that they made everyone around them start to believe too. They didn't succeed immediately, and the journey was brutal. There were setbacks and moments of doubt and times when it seemed like the doubters were right. But eventually, through sheer determination and refusing to accept limitations, they achieved what everyone said was impossible. I see shades of that same energy in Femi right now. He's taking on a challenge that looks impossible, and maybe it is. But maybe, just maybe, his refusal to accept those limitations is exactly what's needed to break through. The Vision has to be taking this seriously even if they're projecting confidence publicly. They'd be foolish not to. History has shown us repeatedly that the greatest threats often come from the directions we least expect. The wrestler who seems overmatched, the newcomer who seems overconfident, the challenge that seems manageable on paper but turns into a nightmare in reality. Smart competitors, smart factions, they don't underestimate anyone. They prepare for every possibility, they respect every opponent's potential, and they strike first when threatened. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Vision attempt to make an example of Femi early, to send a message to anyone else who might be thinking about challenging their authority. That's what dominant factions do. They crush dissent before it has a chance to spread. What keeps me up at night thinking about this storyline is the unpredictability of it all. Wrestling is at its best when outcomes feel genuinely uncertain, when you can't predict with confidence what's going to happen next. Right now, I have no idea how this plays out. Does Femi actually manage to dismantle the Vision piece by piece, proving that one extraordinary individual can overcome a dominant collective? Does the Vision destroy him so thoroughly that it serves as a cautionary tale for anyone else with similar ambitions? Does this conflict lead to unexpected alliances, betrayals, or revelations that change the entire landscape of Raw? All of those outcomes are plausible, and that uncertainty is what makes this must-watch television. I also think about the ripple effects this situation will have beyond just Femi and the Vision. Every other superstar on the Raw roster is watching this unfold, and they're making calculations of their own. Some might see Femi's boldness as inspiration to step up their own games. Others might see it as an opportunity to align themselves with either side of this conflict for their own advancement. The mid-card wrestlers who have been stuck in neutral might suddenly see openings created by the chaos at the top. The tag team division might be impacted if members of the Vision are forced to focus on this new threat. Championship pictures could shift dramatically depending on how this war progresses. This isn't just about two entities clashing, it's about the entire ecosystem of Monday Night Raw being disrupted and reorganized. There's something poetic about a giant from NXT arriving on Raw and immediately targeting the biggest power structure on the show. It's David and Goliath, except David is also a giant, which creates this fascinating dynamic. Femi isn't some small technical wrestler who has to outsmart and outmaneuver larger opponents. He's a physical specimen who can match the Vision's intimidation factor and potentially exceed it. When he stands across the ring from members of the Vision, he doesn't look out of place. He looks like he belongs, like he was always meant to be in those main event positions. That visual equality matters more than people realize. It's easier to believe in someone's ability to compete at the highest level when they look the part, and Femi absolutely looks like a main event player. The promo work leading up to whatever physical confrontation we eventually get is going to be crucial. Femi has shown flashes of charisma on the microphone, but this is a different level of pressure. He's going to be trading verbal barbs with some of the best talkers in the industry, people who have been cutting promos on the main roster for years, who know how to manipulate crowds and control narratives. If he can hold his own in those exchanges, if he can match their intensity and wit and presence, it will go a long way toward legitimizing his position as a genuine threat. But if he falters, if he gets exposed as not ready for that level of verbal warfare, it could undermine the physical credibility he's built. Wrestling is as much about what you say as what you do, and both elements have to be firing on all cylinders for this to reach its full potential. I keep coming back to this question of motivation because it drives everything. Why did Femi choose this path? What does taking down the Vision accomplish for him beyond establishing dominance? Is this about championships, about power, about respect, or about something deeper? The most compelling villains and heroes in wrestling history have always had clear, understandable motivations even if we didn't agree with their methods. Stone Cold wanted to fight against authority that he felt was oppressing him. The Rock wanted to prove he was the most electrifying performer of all time. CM Punk wanted respect and recognition for his abilities. What does Femi want beyond simply defeating the Vision? That answer will determine whether the story has staying power or fizzles out once the initial shock wears off. The physical matches that will inevitably result from this conflict have the potential to be absolutely brutal. Femi's style is hard-hitting, powerful, relentless. He doesn't do a lot of flashy high-flying moves or technical chain wrestling. He hits you, he overpowers you, he makes you question whether this career is worth the physical toll. If the Vision meets him at that level of intensity, if they're willing to engage in the kind of physical warfare that Femi excels at, we could be in for some genuinely violent and memorable encounters. But if they try to outsmart him, to use their numbers advantage and strategic superiority to avoid direct confrontation, we might see a different kind of story play out. Both approaches have merit, and I'm fascinated to see which direction this goes. Something I haven't seen enough people talking about is how this affects Femi's development as a performer. Being thrust into a main event level storyline immediately upon arriving on Raw is a huge opportunity but also a massive risk. If he succeeds, he establishes himself as a top-tier talent immediately and potentially shortens the road to championship gold by years. If he fails, if this storyline doesn't connect or if he's not ready for the spotlight, it could damage his credibility in ways that take a long time to repair. I've seen talented wrestlers never fully recover from being pushed too hard too fast before they were ready. I've also seen talented wrestlers languish in mediocrity because they weren't given opportunities when they were ready. Finding that balance is one of the hardest things in wrestling, and we're about to find out which side of that equation Femi falls on. The fans are divided on this, which is actually perfect for wrestling. Some people love Femi's confidence and see him as a breath of fresh air. Others think he's disrespectful and hasn't earned the right to challenge the vision. That division creates engagement, it creates debate, it creates the kind of passionate responses that wrestling thrives on. Whether people are cheering for him or against him, they're invested, and that's what matters. Apathy is the enemy of wrestling. Passion, even negative passion, can be channeled into something productive. The worst thing that could happen here is people not caring about the outcome, and I don't think that's a risk with this particular storyline. I think about the pressure Femi must be feeling right now, and it's immense. He's made these bold declarations, he's drawn a line in the sand, and now he has to back it up. The wrestling world is watching, waiting to see if he can deliver on the promises he's made. That kind of pressure either crushes people or transforms them into something greater. We've seen both outcomes throughout wrestling history. Some performers wilt under the bright lights and expectations. Others rise to the occasion and exceed even their own expectations of what they're capable of achieving. Which version of Femi are we going to see? That's the multi-million-dollar question that's going to be answered over the coming weeks and months. The storytelling possibilities here are endless, and that's what has me so excited as a fan. This could go in so many different directions depending on how creative wants to play it and how the performers execute the vision. We could see Femi systematically take out members of the vision one by one in a series of increasingly brutal encounters. We could see the vision recruit someone to counter Femi, creating a proxy war that expands the conflict. We could see betrayal from within the vision as cracks start to form under the pressure of this new threat. We could see Femi reveal that he's not alone, that he has backup we didn't know about. We could see a complete subversion where Femi ends up joining the vision after proving his worth. Any of these directions could work if executed properly, and that's the beauty of professional wrestling when it's firing on all cylinders. As I sit here thinking about everything we've discussed, I keep coming back to one central truth. Femi has created a moment. Whether it leads to sustained success or spectacular failure, he's created something that people are talking about, something that has injected energy into Monday Night Raw, something that feels important. In an era where so much wrestling feels predictable and safe, where so many performers are afraid to take risks or make bold statements, Femi has chosen a different path. He's betting on himself in the most public way possible, and that takes courage regardless of the outcome. The vision represents established order, proven success, institutional power. Femi represents disruption, hunger, the future challenging the present. That's a story as old as wrestling itself, but it never gets old when it's told with genuine conviction and authentic emotion. So yeah, I'm hooked. I'm invested. I want to see where this goes, and I have a feeling you do too. That's why you're going to keep coming back to WWE Frenzy, because we're going to be covering every twist and turn of this saga as it unfolds. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and drop a comment below telling me whether you think Femi is what it takes to dismantle the vision or if he's bitten off more than he can chew. This is going to be one hell of a ride, and I want you right here with me as we watch it all play out.